So thank you, Dr. Vincent. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Dr. Vincent, I know Dr. Vincent for the past couple of years. I've been following his work. He's one of the pillars of the care movement and has been contributing in many ways to the growth of this field. What are your views on why knowledge management is very important from an innovation perspective? What are your views on that?
Well, when it comes to innovation, we cannot innovate. I mean, we don't innovate in a vacuum. We don't innovate out of nothing. I mean, you still have a lot of people think like, yeah, suddenly we get a bright new idea and we can run a new business, but it doesn't really happen that way. I mean, usually we build, I mean, there is this popular quote of we build on the shoulder of giants. So it means that we build on what we previously learned, what we previously experienced, so all on pre-existing knowledge. And the way we rearrange or remix this knowledge can help to build or to create new ideas and so on. So if organization, so you have organization who end up having a bright idea and make it a successful product, but then later on, when they have been successful and they're looking to create another product, they are, I mean, very often, rarely are able to replicate these success stories. And this is because they don't have a systematic approach to innovate. And systematic approach to innovate means that if we build innovation out of pre-existing knowledge, you should be able to know what you know internally already in your organization. So what kind of knowledge, expertise we have, and what kind of knowledge and expertise is available also in our industry, in our environment, and see how you can recombine or how you can leverage this existing knowledge. So it's about the internal flow of knowledge in the organization, also the flow of knowledge inbound and outbound, so knowledge going outside to your partner and knowledge from your partner getting to you. So it's building this ecosystem, if you want, of where knowledge flows back and forth, and this stimulates, this leads organization to innovate or to find partners that will help them to come up with new solutions. I mean, it goes back, I mean, if you remember also the first knowledge management model, the Seki model by Nonaka, where you have the socialization, externalization, whatever. Nonaka showed that, I mean, again, that's a flow of knowledge that leads potentially to innovation. So if in your organization, you don't do anything, so a lot of organizations capture knowledge and put it in a repository. That's not, I mean, that's not a flow of knowledge. Knowledge needs to flow in between people, needs to be leveraged. And so if knowledge is a raw material for innovation, and if companies are not doing anything to identify it, share it, transfer it, store it, or reapply it, then it's very unlikely they will be able to systematically innovate. So that's why I believe KM is really critical for organization to be able to innovate. And if they don't properly do it, it's very unlikely that they will be able to systematically innovate.
As KM practitioners, we all know that knowledge management is key for any organization to survive and be competitive. But how do we make it prominent? How do we make the leadership team realize that it is important? Okay.
Yeah, so another reason why a lot of KM program or initiative have not been sustainable in organization is because, I mean, everyone does realize the values that KM can bring to an organization, but it's never perceived really as something which is too strategic. So a lot of organizations have said, oh yeah, it's nice to do KM, so let's do communities of practice. Let's use a content management system. But all these practices were not directly tied or were not directly aligned with the business strategy of the organization. So I mean, few had a specific KM strategy, and the one who had a KM strategy, sometimes it was not fully aligned or fully or clearly, if you want, let me say it that way, we're not clearly aligned with the business strategy. So when executive ask, okay, how KM help to achieve our goals this year? Very often it was difficult to, to provide a return on investment or show really how KM had valued, had helped, or had brought value to the organization. And so this is mainly due because, again, the strategy was not fully aligned. So what organizations should do is that make sure that their KM strategy, clearly supports the business strategy. If you want to be more customer oriented in the upcoming year, okay, what does KM can do to help to improve customer satisfaction and show how, before KM and after KM, things have changed. So you have real metrics that you can show. We don't care about knowledge management metrics per se, right? We don't know how many documents we have in our knowledge base. We don't know how many communities of practice we have. Executives don't really care about this. What they care about is, okay, how did it help us to run faster, better, cheaper, or whatever? So if you're able to show such kind of metrics, then it's more likely that your KM practices or strategy would be more sustainable over time, and where you will get continuous budget to invest into this. KM does take a lot of time to show its value. And also, sometimes in organization, executives say, well, over the past 2 years, we have not seen much more benefits of KM. Is it still something worth to keep or not? So that's also something to take in consideration, that it takes time for KM to show its value. And last thing I would like to say also about this is I've noticed also, being a consultant, that as you said, no one will disagree that knowledge management is of value and can benefit organization. But unfortunately, when there are budget cuts, or when one of the leaders who was supporting knowledge management leaves the organization, a lot of KM initiatives die. Now, if you present the thing differently, instead of saying, yes, knowledge management can bring some value, but look at the other side of the coin and say, what are the risks or what are the costs of not managing knowledge in your organization? What will happen if we lose this expert or this expert? What will happen if so what are the risks and costs involved by not doing it systematically? And then usually people look at it through a completely different eye. Even so, that's the same thing, but they say, oh, now I'm responsible. So if I don't do anything about it to make sure that we systematically manage what we know, then I will be appointed as a responsible for doing that. So people look at it through a different angle, and then they pay much more attention because it's perceived as a risk or as a cost which is not currently managed. And so they should come up with some proactive plan to mitigate this risk or this cost. So, and I think this links back to your first question. So we are going back to the loop. That's where, again, the ISO, the new KM ISO standard 30401 can help to systematize, also to make this process more systematic. So yes, so what are we doing to systematically manage knowledge, or to reduce the risk of knowledge loss or whatever, knowledge decay or knowledge, whatever we can call it. Then so the ISO standard can help, again, organization to demonstrate that they have put in place some systematic processes to do this. So I do believe that the standard, if it is largely adopted by organization, will help them to more systematically apply it, and more systematically see the value of benefits of knowledge. So we have now a tool. Before, we didn't have any standard and everyone was doing it a bit the way they wanted to. The standard gives an overall framework, again, giving a lot of freedom for people to do it the way that is most convenient or the most meaningful for the organization. So it doesn't lock you into you have to do it that way, that way, that way. But it gives an overall framework that, if it's well followed, will help organization really to avoid any of these risks or any of these loss.
Thank you, Doctor. It's much relevant, much required as an advice for KM practitioners to make KM more relevant. And with that, we come to an end of our session. And really, I really appreciate your time as well as the jewels that you shared with us. It's very, very useful. And I hope more and more folks will get to benefit from your thought process. And we wish you the best in your journey. Wish you and your institute the best, and making more and more inroads into the knowledge management field, as well as make it more relevant to the industry, as well as to academia and to the humanity as a whole. Thank you, Doctor.
Well, thank you very much, Randy. It was a great pleasure to be part of your series. And thank you also for organizing all these thought leaders interview. I think it's a good way also for you to share what people are thinking in this field, and see how people also perceive the future. So thank you also for your contribution for the field of KM. You're playing also a very important role in disseminating this knowledge from different experts and leaders worldwide. Thank you.